Hello, I'm Jed. Welcome to the Paramount Podcast. It's been a little while since I recorded a video. Please do check out the last video that I put out on the channel about fasting. I really enjoyed that video. I thought it turned out really good. So if you haven't seen that, please check that out. Today, I want to talk about something that when I first heard this, it seemed so important to me, and I just had this desire of I think everyone needs to hear this. I think everyone needs to know this, especially Christians, because it was so encouraging and it answers so many questions. So I will present that to you today the best I can. Full disclosure, I first heard John Bevere share some of the things that I'm going to share today. Now, I did my own research for the video, and I believe that I present things in a way that I haven't heard John Bevere present them, but this is just historical truth. So you can look this up for yourself. Like I said, I did do my own research for the video, and I also fully endorse John Bevere. So I love the content he's putting out. I'm listening to one of his books right now, and I love John Bevere. He's been consistent for decades and beautiful guy. Love John Bevere, and so I do encourage you to listen to him. Subscribe to John Bevere. He's doing some really good stuff. I want to share with you the historical background of ancient Jewish weddings. So, ancient Jewish weddings are very different from the American or Western weddings that I grew up with and that I'm familiar with. One of the biggest differences to the way that we do things is that in ancient Jewish culture, you had a betrothal. This was like an engagement, but it was much more serious than an engagement because someone was essentially married to their betrothed. They weren't yet married, but it was a binding contract and a covenant. And if you wanted to abandon the wedding, if you wanted to back out of a wedding and you were already betrothed, you actually needed a divorce. So it was much more serious than engagement, where, in today's culture, you could break off an engagement. Yeah, that's a big deal, but it's not like a legally binding type thing. You don't need a divorce lawyer to end an engagement. You did to break off a betrothal. In ancient Jewish culture, a groom would go with his father to the family of the would be bride, and they would sit down with the family and they would negotiate. Now, one of the things they negotiated was a bride price called the mohar. This was to compensate the family for the loss of their daughter, who maybe was providing or helping the family in certain ways, but also just to show the value that they place on the bride. So there would be a bride price, and then there would also be a contract called the ketubah. Now they would sign the ketubah, this contract, and it would dictate the terms of the betrothal, and certain things. If they didn't marry, certain things would be paid out to different places, depending on the circumstances. So there was a whole contract that would underline what happens if this party backs out or that party backs out, and they would all agree on it. They'd sign this contract. Then the bride and the groom would share a glass of wine. They would drink this glass of wine together, and this was symbolic of the covenant, that they were forming this covenant. They were now betrothed after signing the contract and then drinking the glass of wine. At this point in the process, the bride specifically, but sometimes the groom as well, would engage in what they call a mikvah, which it was a ceremonial cleansing. So often the bride would be immersed in water as a sign, a symbolism. It would be a public act, a symbol that she is leaving her old life to go have a new life with the groom. Now, often the groom could also do this too for the exact same reason. They would perform this mikvah, this ceremonial washing, to symbolize leaving the old life behind and starting a new life. At this point, the groom would then return to his father's house, and at this point in the betrothal, the groom has one big job ahead of him, and that is to build the house that he and his bride will live in. So the groom would begin to build this house or bridal chamber, and it was typically a large room attached to his father's house. So, kind of like an addition to the house would be the new house that the groom was making for himself and for his bride. While the groom is building their new home, the bride has a job. Her job is to craft her wedding dress and to fill a hope chest. So she would have this hope chest, and inside the hope chest, she would have clothing, linen, jewelry, perfume, oil, incense, in pots and pans and things that she will want to take into her future life with her new husband. Now, during this time, the bride and groom are separated. They do not see each other. They don't live together. They don't sleep together. They haven't slept together. They're betrothed, but they're not married. So they have a legally binding covenant and contract that they are betrothed to one another, but they are not, in fact, yet married. During this time, it's a time of waiting and preparation. The bride is making herself ready. She's getting prepared. She's filling her hope chest. She's collecting all the things that she believes she'll want to have in her new life with her husband. The husband is preparing their home that they're going to live in together, making an addition onto his father's house. But the entire season is a time of waiting and separation. Now, this was intentional, it was on purpose, and one of the main purposes of the separation was for the bride to prove her faithfulness, prove her loyalty, prove that she could wait whatever amount of time it would be. She's going to wait for her groom to return for her. That's what she's chosen. Now, if in during this betrothal period, if her heart begins to wander after someone else or something starts to happen, whatever, that would be grounds for divorce, a breaking of the betrothal. You can see this in scripture because when Joseph finds that Mary is pregnant, it says that he decided to divorce her quietly, not wanting to put her to public shame. But there you have it. They were betrothed. They were not married. They were not married at this point. They were betrothed. And Joseph finds out that Mary's pregnant. And so now he has to divorce her because they were in a legally binding contract, the ketubah, and they'd also made a covenant with one another. And to break off the betrothal, it required a divorce. So that's why Joseph had decided to divorce her. The time of separation was typically several months, if not a year, and sometimes more than a year. In fact, I believe the average time was somewhere around a year. Now, here's another key detail about the time of separation is that the bride did not know at what time the groom would come for her. She had no clue. She knew the time frame of what a normal betrothal period is. There was kind of a standard, okay, well, we know it's going to at least be several months. It probably will be more like a year. It could be longer than a year. So we have a time frame, but we don't know a specific day. So the bride didn't know when the groom would come back for her. Equally, the groom also did not get to pick the day. He, in fact, didn't know the day either. The only person who would know and decide when it was the right time was actually the father of the groom. So when the father decided that it had been long enough and it was time for his son to go get the son's bride, he would tell the son, "Okay, it's time. It's time to go get her." When the father signals that it's time for the groom to go get his bride, the groom would lead a colorful procession, a parade of sorts, to the bride's home, and there they would blow trumpets to alert the bride that they had come. So they would blow shofars, they blow trumpets. There's a big parade in the streets, and that is the way that they would let the bride know they had come for her. It was time. She needs to grab her things and go because now they're getting married. Many times the groom would come in the evening or at night And there was a specific purpose for this. One was to maintain the element of surprise, that it was intentional that the bride did not know when the groom would come. It kept her in this suspense of it could be any night that the groom would come, and she needed to stay ready and alert. And there was also a sense of eager anticipation. Imagine being that bride, and it's been several months, and you know any night now your groom might come blowing shofars, and all of a sudden you're whisked into your new life, into a celebration, into the wedding. It would create such a wonderful sense of expectation. And that was exactly what they wanted. So many times the groom would come in the middle of the night to maintain that element of surprise so that they could sneak up to the house without being reported or seen. And they would blow the shofars, awake the bride, awake her household, and take her off to the marriage. Now, the other reason that they would do this at night would be that everyone would be home. If they came in the middle of the day, there was a possibility that they show up at the bride's house and the bride is out doing things and she isn't home. And so, to avoid that, they would come in the evening or at night. So when the groom shows up at the bride's house and they blow the shofars, the bride grabs her hope chest, grabs her dress, grabs all these things, comes out. She's been waiting for this moment for months now. She knows exactly what to do. She's ready. She's wearing the dress that she made. She has all her things. They're all prepared, and she's able to leave with this bridal procession to the home that the groom has prepared, and to enter into the bridal chamber. The bride and the groom enter into the bridal chamber, and they stay there together, just the bride, just the groom, stay together in the bridal chamber for 7 days. This is a place that they prepared, and there's groomsmen and bridesmaids, probably called different things, but there to help and assist and feed them and all that kind of stuff. But they stay locked away for 7 days. I think this is very interesting that they would start their marriage with just direct relationship, direct connection, 7 days with no one else, just getting to know each other. I think that's kind of cool. During the 7 days that the bride and the groom are in the bridal chamber, outside is a 7 day marriage celebration. The whole bridal party, the whole groom's party, everyone is partying outside the bridal chambers, celebrating the new marriage. When I first heard this, I got so excited because my brain instantly began making connections between my Christian walk, my Christian life, my Christian faith, and this ancient Jewish tradition. Here's one scripture I think you'll find very interesting. Matthew 22, verse 2 says, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son." Kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son. One of the first symbolisms that we see in this ancient Jewish tradition is the bride price. Now, the Bible shows us that Jesus actually paid a really hefty price for us. He laid down his own life, he spilled his own blood. This was heaven. I've heard some people saying heaven bankrupting itself to redeem us. The most valuable treasure of heaven being spent on our behalf. See what great love the Father has for us that he would give us his son. And the Bible also tells us, he says, "You are not your own because you've been purchased with a great price." Now, when we look at some of the betrothal ceremonies, the cup of wine establishes the covenant between the bride and the groom. If you look at Jesus on the night that he was betrayed, the Last Supper, he sits down with his disciples. He holds a cup and he says, "This cup is the new covenant of my blood." And he hands it to his disciples and he tells them to drink it. He makes covenant with them by sharing this cup of wine with them. There's a very good chance that the disciples looked at what Jesus was doing and instantly thought of the symbolism of the betrothal. Now, when the bride and groom are betrothed, one of the things that they do is they are publicly immersed in water. And this symbolizes that they're leaving the old life to start a new life with each other. I find it very interesting that Jesus was baptized And John the Baptist protested and said, Jesus, I need to be baptized by you. I shouldn't be baptizing you. And Jesus said, let it be so that we fulfill all righteousness. Meaning, let us do this so that we cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Jesus being baptized doesn't make a lot of sense when you think of baptism as symbolism for the removal of sin. Jesus was without sin. He never sinned. Did he need to baptize to publicly profess that he was being washed from his sin? No, he did not need to do that. But Jesus may have chose to be baptized, one, to show us the way that we should walk, the way that we should live our lives when we follow him, but also to symbolically gesture towards this betrothal ritual, which was symbolizing that he's laying down his old way of life for a new life with his bride. And that is exactly what Jesus accomplished on the cross. Was he was able to redeem us, to take us from death to life, that we would be his own, a people for his own possession, that we would be his and he would be ours. So I think there's a very strong symbolism in baptism. And as we are baptized, we are saying that we're giving up our old life that was apart from him to come up and live a new life that is joined with him. So the symbolism in baptism I find very, very strong. Then we have the period of separation. This is one of the strongest parallels that we have between our Christian faith and this ancient Jewish tradition. Let me read to you from John chapter 14, verses 2 and 3. Jesus tells his disciples, and remember, this is right before Jesus is going to be crucified in front of them and then ascend to heaven sometime after that. Okay, Jesus says, in my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and I will take you to myself, that where I am, you may also be. I guarantee that when Jesus said this to his disciples, they knew exactly what he was talking about. He says, my Father has a big house with lots of rooms. I'm going to my Father to prepare a place for you. And then I'm going to come back for you so that I can bring you to my Father's house where I've prepared a place for you. This was a direct reference to the marriage tradition of the day. And I think that even in this statement, Jesus also kind of inferred that there was going to be a time of separation. Now, we know from Scripture, Jesus says, I will never leave you or forsake you. He says, behold, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. I myself and many other Christians, though, sometimes wonder, Jesus, why aren't you just more revealed? Why aren't you closer? Why don't you manifest yourself more? Why don't you just walk in the room? Why don't we have encounters with you like the stuff that we're dreaming of? Why isn't it on earth as in heaven? Why don't we see you face to face like we will on that day? Paul himself wrote, he said, now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we'll see face to face. So there is a reality that Jesus is always with us. He doesn't actually leave us. But there is also another reality that now we see and know in part. But when we enter into that place that Jesus prepared for us, we will know fully, even as we've been fully known. There is a time of separation. And the analogy, the parable of the wedding makes so much sense to me because it explains it. It's actually on purpose. The time of separation is not what we want. We want to be with our King. We want to be with him now. We want the fullness of his kingdom now. We don't want to have to wait. Just like that bride, if she was really in love with her groom, she doesn't want to have to wait a year or more. What if the father decides it's going to be nearly 2 years and she's going to have to wait? And every single day she will have to be ready that her groom could come at any moment. I mean, it's like, oh, it's agonizing. I want that. I've already been baptized publicly to say I'm leaving the old life behind. I'm choosing this new life, and we want the fullness of it, but it has a purpose. Now, in ancient Jewish times, the purpose was to prove and show that the bride would be faithful. that she, if it was a long wait, if her husband was delayed, that she would still stay faithful. That if she went through some hard times during, say, the year of separation, if she goes through some challenges, some trials, it doesn't matter. Her heart stays unwavering, and she remains ready. She remains expectant that he could come at any minute, and she will be ready for when he does. And that is exactly the life that we're called to live as believers, where in this life, where sometimes we get tired, sometimes we get weary, but we maintain as number one in our hearts our devotion to Christ, and we don't waver from it. We are longing for his return. We are eagerly expecting him to come, and we know that we will see him face to face like we've dreamed of. We know it will happen, and we are going to stay faithful. We're going to keep oil in our lamps. We're going to keep our fire burning. My encouragement to you today: yes, you can have more of God. Yes, you can draw near to him and he will draw near to you. Yes, he's with you right now and you should press into that relationship. But my encouragement to you too is that the separation and the times that you feel the separation, it's actually serving a purpose. And when we get to heaven, many of the rewards and promotions that God gives his people are doled out according to how we handled this time of separation, how we handled the times of trial. It proves something about our commitment to Jesus. Okay, this is 2 Corinthians 11, verses 2 and 3. For I feel a divine jealousy for you, since I betrothed you to one husband, to present you as a pure virgin to Christ. But I am afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his cunning, your thoughts will be led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. Notice that Paul says we're betrothed to Jesus. We're betrothed, but he's concerned that our passion could be led astray. No, we're gonna maintain our devotion to Jesus Christ. Another powerful illustration from the ancient Jewish tradition is the hope chest. The bride would fill with clothes, jewelry, perfume, oil, incense. The oil and incense, it reminds me of something that we bring to the Lord. At the end of this life, when we stand before Jesus, we want to bring stuff that is pleasing to him. We want to show up like a bride wearing his favorite perfume. We want to show up smelling like the incense that burns before him night and day, the prayers of the saints. We want to show up not empty-handed, but saying, Lord, during this time of separation, I was thinking of you. I was devoted to you the whole time. But she also has clothes and jewelry. Right now is the time that you and we're making our white dress. Okay, I know it's an analogy. I don't wear dresses, okay? But right now we are making a pure white wedding garment, that when we stand before him, that it's not shameful, that it doesn't look like, oh well, we didn't value this moment, Jesus. It's like, no, I valued this day. I was looking forward to this day, like a wedding day. I was looking forward to this. I was planning on this. I was eagerly anticipating this moment. Okay, some of the things that we're putting in our hope chest, we are storing up for our future life. Just like the bride, she would put pots and pans, and she put the different things that she wanted to take into her future life. Right now, we are storing up things that we will take into eternity, into our future life. This is exactly why Jesus, word for word, said, store up your treasure in heaven. Store up your treasure in heaven. He was being serious. He was being literal. We are storing it up right now as we speak. It's our job as the bride. I'm going to read from Revelations chapter 3, verse 18. This is Jesus speaking, and he says, I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, so that you may be rich, and white garments, so that you may clothe yourself, and the shame of your nakedness may not be seen, and salve to anoint your eyes, so that you may see. So what do you talk about? Gold as in jewelry, white garments as in clothes and linen and the white dress. And he said salve to anoint your eye, ointment, perfume. Even though the context of Revelation 3:18 is slightly different, I really believe there's a connection here. These are the things that we're to be storing up for eternity. It's the same stuff. So, one of the more serious warnings from this illustration is that during this time of testing, that actually one of the ways the story could go is that the bride does lose interest in the groom. If he's delayed and the time of separation is longer than she thought it would be, does her heart begin to drift or wander? Does she fall in love with another? And that's one of the big dangers and one of the big challenges. One of the things that we're proving to Jesus is that we keep our heart for him, that there is no other, it's only him. I want to read a very serious scripture out of James. This is James chapter 4 verse 4. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. What is he saying? He's saying that as believers, we know that we are not just living for this life, we are living for eternity. That our treasure is in heaven, that our hope is in Jesus. And actually, if our heart begins to drift and we fall in love with this world and the things of the world, it's the parable of the sower, that weeds and thorns could begin to choke our heart and our pure devotion to Christ, and we get distracted. It's almost like someone else or something else catches our eye. I believe that's why James says, you adulterous people, because we're betrothed to Jesus. We're betrothed to Jesus. We can't forget about him to fall in love with something else. That doesn't mean it's wrong to have possessions. It doesn't mean it's wrong to have nice things. It means that my love for him has to come first. My devotion to him has to come first. And I'm not going to sacrifice my relationship with him for anything. Not power, not money, not fame. To me, one of the coolest takeaways from the analogy of the ancient Jewish wedding is found right here in Matthew chapter 24, verse 36. But concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. So many people have read that scripture and not understood it at all. How can the Father know and Jesus doesn't know? Jesus said he's in the Father and the Father's in him. If Jesus is God, how can the Father know the day and Jesus doesn't know the day? God has ordained it so that only the Father knows and only the Father decides, exactly like a Jewish father would decide when it was right for his son to go bring his bride home. The father would turn to the son and say, "It's time." And that was it. I want you to be encouraged because a day is coming, and it might be sooner than we think, where the Father will look to Jesus and say, "Son, it's time. Go get your church. Go get your bride. Go get your people." And my encouragement to you today, if you're watching this, make sure that your heart stays burning for Him, that you don't grow weary, that the stuff of this life doesn't bring you down, that your fire doesn't go out, that you keep oil in your lamp, you keep burning for Jesus, and you keep eagerly expecting his return, that he will come like a thief in the night at an hour we don't expect, and he is coming for his church, for his people, for his bride. Thank you for watching. God bless you. I'll see you next time.